it is why you want money, right? It is why you want safety.
It's why you want to achieve. It's why you want to hit your goals.
It's because you want the feelings that come with that. But we get so lost in thought that we're not good at even feeling those feelings when they come up naturally in our everyday life.
Are you listening?
This is the Rob Scott Show.
Damn.
I mean, really, like, if we're not trying to change the world, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Rob Scott Show. Hey, Sarah, how you doing today?
Good, Rob. It's been a week. I'm glad to see you. How are you?
It's good to see you too. I'm really excited to do this with you. What would you like to talk about today?
Yeah. Well, today I think I would love to have a conversation with you. And just to give our listeners some context, we've been offering, you might have heard on our last episode, but we've been offering free breakthrough calls. And there's been a lot of different coaching opportunities as people talk to Rob on these quick calls. And so today I'd like to kind of dive into an actual coaching conversation that you had and kind of dig through it with you, because there was a couple really interesting things that came up on that call. And I would love to kind of talk about them with you in the light of an actual real life example.
Yeah. So I think the thing that you liked was the time-based mind. And what I'd really like to highlight here is that a lot of what I'm trying to share with the world is there's a different skill set for our conscious mind and our conscious attention. And it's the same skill set that we need to feel happy and fulfilled and manage our emotional state. But it's also the same skill that's needed if we're going to focus on something to do over time that's really important. And one of the biggest things that I watch people get stuck in is they get stuck in what I like to call a time-based mind, which has this underneath framework of, I'm not there yet, this isn't good enough yet. And so as I was coaching this really bright, wonderful guy who tends to do project management, I was noticing that, project managers, but many, many humans, whether we do that or not, use our minds as these very problem-based minds. And so what he wanted was a strategy for how to manage his conscious attention. And what I thought was really interesting in that call was to say, it's not a strategy that we're looking for. It's actually a skill, right? There's a skill that we can gain, that we can flip over and turn on, that has all of these incredible benefits of how to manage your attention, your thinking, your focus, etc. And so I'd love to try to dive in on that a little bit more. Is that what you found interesting?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely did. And I think a lot of it is because I feel like I similarly not only live with the time-based mind, but I mean, I have been complimented many times my problem-solving abilities and my kind of project management brain. And so it kind of fascinated me because I'm not sure I 100% understand what you mean when you say it's, it's a skill, not a strategy, because I'm not sure I fully understand the difference of what you mean there. And then I also would love to kind of get into more for myself and also maybe for our listeners who are thinking like, wait, the mind that's supposed to be present and, whatever, and appreciative and feeling all these things in the moment is also the mind that's, focusing on like, how do I make goals and hit milestones and all that. And that's tricky because you wouldn't think that's coming from the same place.
Well, it's tricky because it seems like it's a lot of different things. And really all I'm talking about is your attention. And one of the things that I keep coming back to share is that your attention is a place. And for most people, the way that attention shows up is that they're not in control at all of where their attention is. They may think they are, but in one moment they're imagining a future they'd like to have. In the next moment, they're imagining a future that they're scared of. Then they have a memory of something that upset them or they feel guilty about or they don't want to happen again. Then their attention is taken up by an advertisement they see. Then they're scrolling and their attention is there. Then it's on Netflix. Then it's back to an itch in their foot. Then it's over here. And their attention is literally moving to all these places, either in time or in thought or in imagination. And what it's not good at, what's atrophied, is the ability to notice where your attention is and marshal it a bit to put it on what's most useful in the moment. And if you're having a joyful experience or something that's beautiful, it's really useful to be able to put your mind there and leave it there a little bit longer so that you can soak up those good feelings. It's really good to notice when you're having a thought that there's nothing you can do anything about, but it's causing you anxiety or overwhelm or all these things, a higher quality of mind might be, okay, I see this real problem in the world over
Right.
time, and I need to do something about it, or I need to write down to do something later, and then have your mind be free again to be back on something that either feels amazing or is useful and productive, etc. So that skill set, it's not a strategy, right? Most of us that are thinking in time are like, what's the strategy that I'm going to keep coming back to? And it's really a skill of marshaling our attention in a new way that becomes incredibly valuable. And the thing that was interesting, I think, for that coaching client was to point out that it's the same skill that if you're effective at putting your mind on something that is time-based, like planning a project or thinking through a hard problem, the ability to stay focused on that, which so many people complain lately is difficult because they're scattered, they're in all these things.
Right.
That same ability to leave your mind on something like that is the same ability to be able to come back into your body and enjoy something beautiful like making love with your partner or enjoying a delicious taste or laughing really hard at a comedy show or whatever those things are that are embodied in your being in the moment.
Got it. Yeah. So that does help. That does help kind of clarify it. And I think of would you say, this might be a tangent, but hopefully not, but I kept thinking of like delayed gratification when you said that, which is not to say would you also say that's a skill and not a strategy? Because you can apply delayed gratification to, almost anything, good or bad. It's just an action versus a,
well, the impulse is immediate gratification, right? We if we're left unconscious, we will tend to choose the things that feel good in the moment, but maybe don't serve a future ideal of ourselves, right? So our brain we do a thing called identity shifting, and something that I would really love people to understand is that your identity is way more a construction from a committee of parts of you than it is one coalesced version of yourself, right? That coalesced version of yourself that you sense is really you is actually underneath a committee of different values and desires and centers of the brain that have different functioning, that are protecting against safety and are trying to move toward who you'd like to be and are trying to build wealth and are trying to not have this person not like you. All of these different things are actually, they fire differently in the brain. With different studies and different ways of using electrical nodes and things like that, you can amplify some of those areas and turn some off.
Right.
There's split brain studies where people have literally, for different reasons, have had surgeries that literally separate the brain to right and left, where they're not communicating in the same way together, and certain parts of themselves shut off to a great degree. Memories get affected. So all of that complexity gets meshed into, if we're sane, right, a coalesced sense of self. For people who deal with insanity, that may be more difficult to navigate. Right? That committee literally feels like different people, et cetera. But all of that is to sort of back up that delayed gratification is absolutely a skill. It is an application of will in the moment to live into a higher version of yourself where you know that over time something is going to benefit you. So not spending all of your check every time you get it is to delay the gratification of going right to the store or buying everything you want in this moment, to try to build wealth because you have the idea that a future version of yourself would like to have more wealth rather than still be going check to check 10 years from now, right? You'd like to actually build that up. Somebody who wants to have a really nice body would delay the gratification of sugar right now at this dessert, put that down, even though immediately it might feel great to eat that, but they're going to delay that gratification to do it. So again, attention is at the heart of that as well, right? To what degree can you be connected to, wow, my attention is on this piece of cake right now, and yet there's a part of my committee that's like, hey, Rob, you'd like to look okay on the beach this summer, or you want to live longer and, maybe you're trying to cut sugar out of your diet, whatever. Let's delay this cake for this bigger idea of ourselves. And if we don't know where our attention is, if we have no mastery of what our attention is doing, where it is, we end up a victim to not only our own impulses, but what marketers want to do to us and what, parents or friends tell us we should do, et cetera, because we lose the sense of what really matters to us, which is, I'm going to suggest for people, a sense of being much more in control of their own attention.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I guess with and I love that definitely helped. I was thinking of like still trying to distinguish between strategy and skill. And then, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, or go further on this with me, but so that, to me, I guess the distinguishment from what you're talking about is a skill is just something that you do, right? It's an action that you have. Strategy, you're like outcome based. So you could delay gratification, for example,
strategy
for something that's not great. Like,
yeah, let me jump in on that, because I want to make that distinguish if I can. What I mean by strategy when I'm saying that is strategy is more like a plan, right? This is my strategy
Right.
that I will apply when this thing comes up, and I will do that. Okay. A skill is something you're either doing or you're not doing. Okay.
Right.
So for many of us, if we set up a strategy, first off, let me back up. The strategy objectifies the skill into, I hope I have that when I need it, right? It becomes like, I'm going to use this tool as a strategy when I need to. Okay. So in a very subtle way, that's moving it out of this moment into something that I may know how to do in the future when I need that. And we're still learning about it in that way, right? We're not owning it as something I have that I can do right now. If I have it to do now, I'm going to assume I'll be able to do it later as well. Like, it's a skill that I really have, versus like understanding it, right? So many of us are so lost in thought and so lost in time-based stuff that we're constantly trying to go, what's the thing I need to learn? What's going to work later? How can I do this? And all of that never gets us out of time and actually into the moment when it actually needs to happen of,
right.
This isn't a strategy. This isn't something to learn about. This is something you're either doing or you're not doing.
Right. That's like the nail on the head. That's exactly where I'm like, I'm missing this, because I would say, but Rob, of course we want to put a strategy in place. Of course we want to plan and troubleshoot and look for obstacles. But like, yes.
And I'm not saying strategies are bad.
Right.
Absolutely. Use strategies. They have their place. But what I'm talking about here is a skill that you either have taken on or you have not. And by the way, if right now I challenge you to notice what your left foot feels like, if you can do that at all, even if it's not loud or big, but if you could just feel like I'm wearing a sock right now. So I can feel the sock, my foot's on a bottom of this stool. I can feel my bottom of my foot, my toes on that bar, right? If I can move my attention to literally the sensation in my foot, then you have this skill. You can do this. Now, how good you are at it, how often you'll use it, that's debatable, and we can talk about that. But this is a skill that you have that you can choose to marshal and use whenever you want. But if you've put it into a strategy and you're judging yourself against whether I'm using that strategy or not, you're still going to be in this land of objectifying it out away from yourself, hoping that one day soon you'll get it. And it makes you a perpetual student of it rather than somebody who's practicing it and actually doing it.
Yeah, it's so I think it's just so relevant for me, this conversation, and maybe our listeners are not as attached, but definitely, the client that you're talking to, and me, as my brain works, there's a spectrum of people that are like, hey, I can't get started, I can't do anything, I'm doing nothing, I'm procrastinating.
Yeah.
And then there's a spectrum of people who are like in the middle, who are, like doing and they're present and they're doing that. And then there's the people who are like, I'm a high achiever and I need to get the best plan, the most efficient plan. And then, but I see like there's almost these far ends are like almost the same, right? Because what you're either lost in thought of, I can't get started, I'm stuck, like, I don't know where to begin, I'm procrastinating.
Over analysis paralysis, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just something that I think, it's easier to trick yourself because one, you're doing a lot, but let's say like your wheels are spinning, because you're like, well, no, I've made a goal and I've done the course and I've said, but like what you're saying is that like, again, it's as missed as the person who's sitting on the couch, like I'm doing absolutely nothing and I can't get started, because the key there with the attention and being present in the intention is whether you're thinking of using that kind of time-based mind, in my opinion, would say was good to plan and to structure and whatever. It's still missing the ability to switch your mind into the skill, which is you aren't,
Yeah.
And I love that
of having an awareness. So, the company is called Fundamental Shift. There's a fundamental shift in your awareness where you can become aware of what you're aware of. Right.
The metacognition, is that from
It is. Yeah. Yeah. So it's metacognition. It's thinking about your thinking, right? And rather than, I actually don't like thinking about your thinking as much as becoming aware of your thinking.
Right.
And then also gaining the skill of realizing that it doesn't have to always be thought, right? If you are considering your left foot, I would call that not thinking. That's not abstract. That's an experience of a sensation. And all joy is going to live in your sensations, in the actual expression of feeling happy, feeling joyful, all that. So I have a question for you, because I'm so for planning and doing things, but using that as a tool, not being captured in that.
Sure.
Right? If that's the only place that you live, I would call that lost in thought. And that doesn't mean that you're deeply unhappy necessarily. You might be wildly successful in that, but there's a whole avenue of being that you're missing completely. And lots of examples we've used in the past are you're out with friends and all you want to do is plan the next time, rather than really being in the warmth and the glow of the music that's on and the friends and the joy of that. Eating the food, the actual joy of that, right? And so that to a high achiever, that may sound boring unless they realize, like, wow, I'm achieving and I'm not fulfilled. Right. Like,
right. I know. I was just going to go. It's like, that's like I made it, but I'm not happy.
But I'm not, but I can't get there. There's no
not there
right?
yet. Yeah.
Because there's no there. There's no such thing. And so I want you to high achieve deeply, but I want you to also add to that the ability to come into the moment when things are hard, when things are easy, when things are amazing, because that's the poetry of life. And this may sound boring to somebody that still thinks it's in the achievement over time, right?
Well, it will, because there's no possible way to understand that if that's not, something you can wrap your head around.
Yeah.
Right.
So I have a question for you. So you've hung around me quite a bit now. Have any of these ideas, because you are amazing in time, and that is something I would celebrate you for. That's not a knock. That's like, holy,
sure.
She, by the way, she's amazing. Nobody reach out to her, because I don't want her to go.
Don't listen to him.
She's amazing. She's amazing. All right. And super talented and real high achiever, et cetera. And have you had any kind of epiphanies about the moment or gratitude or any of these things that we're talking about? Has that affected your life at all?
I mean, I think I'm probably having one right now, I think if we have listeners who've been around for a while, you've heard me say, like, I really like the story of being with your friends, and not then being like, when am I going to make this happen again? When am I going to get together again? And getting lost in thought, because for me, I'm pretty good at using the strategies when things are not good.
The skills?
The skills. Yes, the skills, the tools.
See, there it is.
Well, yeah, totally. But when things are not good, when I'm stressed, overwhelmed, sad, frustrated, because it just seems really obvious to me, like, I don't feel good. I want to get to a place where I'm either present and I can either be with the bad feelings or whatnot. But I have more trouble when things are quote unquote good. And I know we talk about judging and good and bad and duality, but in the sense of, I'm with my friends and there's joy there that's available, that's really obvious, or I'm highly productive and I'm crushing it in my tasks and I want to like push myself to go further, and I do. And I think the epiphany that I'm having in this conversation and digging in is that it's so nuanced, because you do want to be a doer, right? We talk about being a doer, and for, I guess, maybe other high achievers too, you obviously think, okay, I have to have a plan. I have to be disciplined. I have to do this or I can't do.
Correct.
But really, when you can do the best when you are also able to manage the mind to keep it from running away. And that is way, for me, harder to do when things are going good and they seem really obvious and there's joy to be had and success to be had.
So you're saying it's easier when things are difficult?
For me, it is. Yeah, much easier. I'm like, this is terrible. I need to like do something different here. But when I'm like, crushing, then I'm like, oh no, I'm great. But to your point, there comes a time, and this has definitely happened to me, and not recently, but it's happened to me, where I look up and I say, oh, like I literally just did everything I wanted to do faster and better than I thought I could do it. And there's something that's missing. Right. And so I have experienced that feeling, and it's really confusing because you're like, I should, like, here's an example. I was like early 20s, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna be financially independent and go like make it in New York City and do all these things. And I did. I made this long list of things that I would do in my 20s, and I did them in a year. Like I bought a one-way ticket, went to New York, and I made it. And all these things I thought would take so long, and then I was like, okay, I made it. And then I was like, okay, but I'm not done. Like I didn't feel fulfilled. And then I set another big goal and big goal. And for most of my 20s, I did that. I set big goals. And because I'm a doer and I'm productive and I can make a plan, I did them. And then I looked up and I'm like, I don't feel fulfilled. And I think, so the, the epiphany is that I was deploying strategies that worked. They got me from where I wanted to go, but I didn't have the skill of appreciating it and experiencing it. And so it never felt like the win that I was looking for. And that's just really interesting to me, because it's a totally different side of a coin than someone who's like, I'm depressed, I'm overwhelmed, I'm struggling, how do I get to normal? Like it's that other side of the
So I love it.
scale.
I want to let me jump in. The couple things you said, we want to be doers, and we do, but we also want to be beings, right? So and it's the mastery of both of those that matters. I'm not selling sit on a meditation cushion in bliss and do nothing, right? It's not that at all. And I suggest that when you gain more mastery of your attention, not just you, anybody, you'll be even better at doing, right? That's a big thing that I want people to get. Like if the doing part is most important to you, this is for you also, because you will be way more effective at cutting away the noise and focusing in, right? We're talking about
it's
attention.
The same mind, you said.
And focus.
It's the same mind.
It's the same mind. It's a more awake, more capable mind to use thought as a tool, to use planning and time in a way that's really, really effective. And I want to, lovingly pick apart one of the things you said, just because I like the way you said it. And I don't remember exactly, I was trying to hold on to it, but it was something to the effect of, when I'm feeling bad, I want to figure out a way to become present, right? So it was something like that. What I really want to point out is that is the exact example of a time-based mind. There's no such thing as becoming present. You've been present the entire time. There's nowhere else to be. So there's no path to that. And that's why it's not a strategy, right? In that moment, it's not, what do I need to do? In fact, it's just the doing of moving your attention to what your foot feels like, or what your breath feels like, or what your joy feels like, or what your anxiety feels like, right? We had somebody else share in our Facebook community about how she was going through Hacking Happy, and she woke up really anxious, and she used the tools of, instead of like fighting that or suffering from it, just moving her attention into what that felt like. And then one of the moves of Hacking Happy is to notice that can be really close to excitement. And she said it literally led to like this amazing day for her, because it totally worked. She didn't fight it. She just got present to what was going on. And rather than staying in the mind about anxiety, which is what fuels more anxiety, right? It just makes it's like you're resisting it, and there it is, and I don't want this to be, and it's suffering. She dove into just the tingle that's in her chest. And it was this skill of attention that literally got her out of it. And I think she went on to say she had like this most amazing day, and it was just, it was fantastic. And so it's not a strategy. It's not, oh, what do I do right now? It's not like, oh, I guess I have to sit for 5 minutes. Although you may choose to do that.
Sure.
That is a way, quote unquote, to get there. But what I really want to point out is you're never not present.
Right.
Always here. You're either in a scattered, overwhelmed, place of attention like that, or you can laser focus your attention in, and there's no path to that. That's happening in this moment. Right. So it's immediate. It's like right now. And so I love that idea of there's no path there, right? It's not a strategy. It's not a set of steps. It's a skill and an ability that you can do right in this moment, in any moment. And even as people are listening now, I would suggest that you notice, what does the air feel like on your skin? If you're sitting down, what does your seat feel like as, gravity is holding you right where you are? What does your breath feel like as you're breathing in? And you may notice you can open your attention to that and still listen to us and be much more embodied. And not to get woo-woo, but what happens when your mind gets better at that, let's say, or you at least just let your mind do that, the world becomes much more beautiful, poetic, rich, right? We don't get stuck in this consistent, I'm not there yet, it's supposed to be better. One day I'll get to wherever I'm supposed to get to. It's going to take 4, 5, and 6 and 7 steps, etc.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting to me because I know this. Like you said, I've
Mm-hmm.
been around a while, right? And I think I was literally writing something the other day that was like, you know, you don't have to get to presence. Your presence is happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's also interesting because, like I said, Rob's been doing these breakthrough sessions, and then people are having these breakthroughs. Normally, I don't have big breakthroughs because
Yeah.
I'm like soaked in all this material. But I'm like, oh, this is what it's like when somebody gets on. And it's like a light bulb just clicks on because, yeah, that strategy versus skill is kind of something I will definitely at least take away from this episode because, yeah, I'm so tempted to say like, okay, I need to work on being present or whatever.
Yeah.
And to your point, that's me wanting to deploy a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And what what that narrative, what maybe the new thought there is more like, I have the skill to be present. I should
Mm-hmm.
use it because I don't have to learn. I mean, I have it. It's here.
And deeper than that, you are present, right? So this idea of I'm not present now versus I am present is like, I'm not present is an idea about thought. That's not a real thing. You're always present. You're always right here. There are always sensations going on for you. There's always a thought happening. So just becoming aware that you're thinking is the act of noticing where you are, right?
Sure.
So just using that skill of noticing where you are. I am anxious right now, not with a path to become not anxious, just with an appreciation of I'm anxious right now, right? Which might sound like insanity, but I promise if you try that, it will change the quality of that anxiety. And another moment will unfold, another moment will unfold.
Sure.
You'll be more embodied. And all of a sudden you're fostering this skill that comes along with a path to fulfillment, purpose, happiness, better focus and attention in your doing, etc.
Well, and I think kind of the other big takeaway for me is not only do that when, I am anxious, but, I am success.
Yes.
I am achievement. Things are great. Like, because like I said, the one side, I totally get that. I'm like, that's so clear to me. The other side, I'm like, wait, but I'm great, but I could be better. And that's just as, unthought conscious as you could be.
Let's do one other thing, right? I like the idea of the committee that we talked about earlier, because you're all these things, right? If you wanted to focus on everything that's wrong, and we're talking about focus again, like where is your attention? The world could feel like the sky is falling. And if what you're focusing on is all the things that are wrong, Australia's on fire, this is going on, political, this, that, whatever. If you want to get caught in the narrative of all the challenges, all the problems, that will be your subjective reality. And that's your now moment, right? That's what's going on. There's also a lot of wonderful things happening at the same time. A rosebud somewhere is still opening really beautifully. There's still sunsets and safety and all these things. But if we're in the idea of crisis constantly because of the loudness of the world, and if you follow Twitter and just all the fighting and everything that's that you could focus on, that will be your experience. And so if you don't manage that, if you don't choose to take agency and say, I'm going to manage, not only, it's very useful to just shut off the news for a while, right? And give yourself a break from that if that's really loud and bumming you out or getting you angry and upset. The move of just literally turning those things off would be a step one. But what I'm talking about more deeply is getting really in touch with what your attention is doing in any given moment. And don't then assume that you need to have this skill on all the time, right? You can allow your mind to wander whenever you want to, but just remember that you can bring it back to harnessing in, wow, is where my attention is right now useful to me? Is there something I can do about this that matters? Or should I just move my attention to something else? And in the moving of that attention, you could focus on what a puppy looks like, or, a baby in your life, or something that's really beautiful, and, a connection with a relationship you have, whatever. And as you focus on that, you've literally changed your own reality in that moment, right? Because you are the expression of whatever your consciousness is focusing on in any one moment. And so to the completely uninitiated, we have that chaotic, I have no idea where my attention is. I didn't even know this was a skill. I'm all over the place. And that feels like overwhelm. There's the people who ruminate and focus on sad things all the time. There's the frightful people that focus on anxious, overwhelming moments all the time. And to them, they will sit at a party and argue the world is horrible. Look how bad it is, all that. And what they're looking on at, they're not wrong. It is horrible if that's what you're looking at. It is, there are atrocities. There are all these bad things going on for sure. But there's all these other things happening too. So you personally gaining the skill of finding out, wow, am I focused on something that is useful to me? And I don't just mean selfishly so you can feel good all the time. Maybe you do need to dive in on something that's difficult and hard and whatever, but is that meaningful? Is that purpose-based for you? Is that something where you're being of use to yourself and your family and your community, et cetera? Or are you just in overwhelm and not managing your mentality properly at all?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's great. I think I maybe kind of one more question that comes to mind, just focusing back on like high achievement or that whole idea of I'm not there yet, right? Because we have a lot of people that are amazing, capable, top of their game kind of people, right? And so some might even say, I feel good. I'm happy with my life. I'm satisfied, but they are still stuck. I mean, to me, that I'm not there yet seems separate from like a lot of feelings of like despair and sadness and anxiety. It's this whole, it's almost like an addiction. I know you like to talk about addiction and thought in combination, but for me, at least, it's almost like an addiction to like, I don't know. I don't know. That's why I'm curious. So if you're in a situation where your mind is going like, I'm not there yet, whether it's bad, but I'm specifically talking about more when you're in a high achievement where you like, I'm CEO now, I got the promotion, my salary is way more than I thought, everything's great. I'm not there yet. What's next? And so where then does the attention move to? Like, where's the best place to move your attention to? Like gratitude, like what you've achieved, or
I mean, that's fantastic. Let me back up a little bit and call out what a difference between those two people might be. So the I'm not there yet is often in the suffering of I'm sad, etc., but it may not be explicit. If you were to ask them, is there another way you'd like to feel or another way you'd like your life to be? They would say yes, but maybe they don't even know what that is. And their attention may not be on that. So let's just call it pure suffering, right? Those either moments or people who tend to purely suffer with anxiety or depression or whatever that is, they may not have as loud and I'm not there yet because they don't even feel they have the agency to get anywhere, right? Whereas a high achiever, whether they're really successful or they just have a high achievement mind and they're not successful yet, has at least the faith or the inside belief of there is a there to get to. Right? There is a there to get to. This isn't enough. I'm not happy. I'm not rich enough. I'm not funny enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not whatever enough. But one day maybe I will if I do X, Y, and Z. So they're very doing based, right? Where they're trying to achieve and get this and find the right friends and make the right money and all that stuff. But that fundamental difference is both are unsatisfied with the reality of their moment. But one doesn't even have the faith that it could change. They're just suffering. And the other one is like, there's got to be something to do about this. Okay. Right. And so that comes from, your genetics and how you were born and how you were raised. And if you saw that if I apply myself, I can get better grades and whatever that is. Both of those may be equally suffering, potentially. I mean, the depression, anxiety certainly sounds worse, but there's a whole lot of people who are very successful that end up committing suicide because they've been faking it their whole life and they're wearing a smile to get certain things achieved, but inside they're absolutely miserable. Right.
Well, I mean, to me, that person is the actor that's won, an Oscar. It's the top draft pick of the NFL. It's the high powered lawyer who was head of their class. That CEO, Harvard. I mean, it is people that are massively good at execution.
And doing
yes,
stuff.
in the same level. Like when you say it like that, okay, I see. Like yes, it's that's at the same level of suffering, with just a different. I don't know. A different strategy, right?
Different strategy. They are good at strategy and they maybe apply themselves really well with that. So let's go back to what your question more explicitly was, which if you're in that high achievement mode, what should you move to? Gratitude is an amazing first start. And it's actually the beginning of Hacking Happy. We go into some skills around gratitude. And part of the reason for that is it's a really obvious, easy one to move your attention to, and it seeds that skill of attention in a way that's really, really interesting. So I know you're familiar with Hacking Happy, but anybody who's not, if you end up going through that or looking at it, we're going into gratitude as a starting point because that is a fantastic and easy illustration of how you can do that in all these other ways too. And that I think pretty artfully is expressed in, like day 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 of Hacking Happy. We start getting into what that meta skill is there that I'm talking about.
Yeah. Maybe I need to do Hacking Happy again.
Well, you listened to see if there were errors, and she's like, yeah, I listened to it, man, but you didn't do it. You didn't really do it. All right, let's be honest. Yeah. So that actually brings up a great point. So it's also, we have another amazing guy, different coaching call I did, somebody who I've loved online for a really long time, and he came in and he's been doing nothing but studying personal development. And for him, that was, I don't know what, like The Secret and Law of Attraction and all these things. And it ended up letting him down, right? He ended up feeling really bummed out because, like, I'm trying to manifest and it's not happening. And I was like, okay, like, the magic of manifestation is not what you
strategy.
It's a strategy, but it also shouldn't be what you're waiting for because you don't control it and has not,
Right.
We should be managing fully what we control here, which is how we're thinking, how we're feeling, and how we're behaving. We have way more control there than we do the events that are going to happen to us and are going to come to us or not. Chances are, if you manage those better, you're going to have better events happen. But if that becomes your focus, you get lost in something that you don't fully control, et cetera. So yeah, I think, again, it's not about knowing this information. It's about applying it. So again, a strategy might be, I'm going to read this book. I'm going to go get a Brene Brown or a Eckhart Tolle or whatever, and I'm going to learn about this skill. That's my strategy. This month, I'm going to get better at mindfulness or whatever. That's my strategy I'm in. And that strategy feels good because in the moment, we get a little hit of dopamine. Our body literally changes because of that. And we're a little bit excited about what we think will occur over time. So I'm not talking down about any of that. All that's great. But yet, if you just know about this and you're not applying it, you're not then ever actually using the skill of the strategy, right? So what we want to come back to is, do you have the ability to move your attention around? Can you, let's say, move to gratitude and really sit in it and feel that deeply? And what somebody might do is like, yeah, I know gratitude. I've heard that. I read it's like 3 gratitudes in the morning and whatever. I did that for a while, whatever. But okay, but you didn't take on the skill of using that whenever it comes up in your life, so that it's a thing that's really on your tool belt that you have and that you use whatever as a skill.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. And I think for me, at least personally, I pretty, because I haven't done a lot of the specific 3G3 work. I mean, I have done it, but I mean, gratitude I've been doing for a long time myself. And it's interesting in our group, in our Facebook group, I was just talking to someone about, he was saying like, oh, the embodiment of gratitude, which is also in the Hacking Happy course. And I'm like, yeah, it's amazing. Like I said, you can literally put it on like a robe, right? It's like a next level kind of to really feel it. So I definitely feel like that's a good place to start. But I'm so fascinated by this idea of, it's not a good place to start. It's a good place to be, but I'm definitely like really loving this perspective on skill versus strategy.
Yeah, let me explain that difference between embodying too, because that's
sure.
in line with what we were just saying. Yeah. It's funny because we may end up talking about things, and somebody who hasn't been through any of this is like, I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what that is.
Go through it. It's awesome.
Yeah. The first beginning of gratitude might be like, think of 3 things this morning that you're grateful for. I don't care if it takes 1 minute or 5 minutes or however long you want to do it, but just think of 3 things you're grateful for. And that's an amazing start. But just moving your thought to a thing, what you're missing is what so many of us that are lost in thought and lost in time, same, that's the same thing. Okay. We're lost in this thing. We're trying to get through the practice because we think it's going to help our day, where it's all thought. It's not actually about embodying the feeling, right? So if you then take, okay, I thought about my mom, and that was my gratitude thought, like how much I love my mom, everything she did for me growing up. I've had that thought. You might get this little hit of emotional gratitude from that. But the skill of actually feeling and embodying, like letting that amplify so that it becomes like this magical tingling in your chest and just a much louder experience, is a whole nother level of embodiment. And so this is moving our attention literally from the thought of something, where my attention is out. It's not in my foot anymore. It's not at my breath. It's out in a thought. I've moved it from anxiety or all these other things to the thought of my mom. Great. That's where I've placed my attention. Step 1, good job. But then can you move your attention into what that makes you feel in your body? That embodiment all of a sudden becomes like, oh, that's where the payoff is. Okay, can I get good at that? And what this looks like in somebody like my life is, I will sit here washing dishes and be like lit up just literally at being alive. Or God forbid a song I like comes on and it might move me to tears. And you might go like, I don't want that. Like, yeah, you do. Trust me. That is what you want. That is what makes life like so rich, right? I would put that up against Warren Buffett's money any day, because that ability to feel joy like that is absolutely amazing. And then that doesn't mean that I'm not productive and we're not putting out a podcast and coaching tons of people, doing all these things, right? We can also be productive, but I've got this skill that is an embodiment. It's not knowing about gratitude. It's not understanding it mentally. Those are all still separated away from the actual skill of moving our attention into the wealth of, what this is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I just like to highlight that I think it's very interesting that when you said, okay, I could be washing dishes and then be embodying gratitude or being brought to tears by listening to a song or something. You're not saying, when I sit and do my gratitude practice and my meditation cushion, I move to tears. You're talking about the ability to like embody something while doing other things, right?
This is driving in my car. This is like playing pool down in my lobby with a neighbor. This is lifting weights in the gym. This is walking down the street. This is in a coaching session, talking to somebody, being really awake and alive in my being. Right. And when sadness comes up, grief, loss, those things, those become so incredibly rich by comparison. Now, again, would I choose that? I'm not looking to go be sad about anything, but as life comes and hits us in the face, there's a whole different level of management of that. If I can manage my attention as a skill and notice the richness and the aliveness of what's going on. And I mean, it's another level. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Well, and you said like, nobody would want that. Maybe people think like, oh, I don't want that. And it's like, and you're saying, yeah, you do, because you want, like, that is kind of what everybody wants, is the ability, whether that's to, and you said this before, so I'm just really stealing your words out of your mouth, but whether that's the ability to wash the dishes and feel gratitude, or get paid $1 million, make
or
$1 million
enjoy the
a
Rolls
year.
Royce you just bought. I mean,
Right.
it is why you want money, right? It is why you want safety.
It's why you want to achieve. It's
because
why you want to hit your goals.
It's because you want the feelings that come with that. But we get so lost in thought that we're not good at even feeling those feelings when they come up naturally in our everyday life, right? It is the ability to be in the massage that is amazingly happening to you all the time, and whether you have the skill of sitting in that or not. And again, people are like, yeah, but I still want to achieve. Cool. Can you move your attention to a plan that's inspiring and makes you feel amazing while you're doing that, et cetera, and then execute on that in a way where you're your word and you really show up and you can go through the hard things, et cetera.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And if you need help with any of that, we can help you. ...
Yeah. How do we help them? Why don't you tell them? How do we help them?
Well, I would highly suggest to start with really joining our Facebook community. And if you don't join our Facebook community, you're not on Facebook, that's fine. Shoot me an email at support@robscott.com and hop on a breakthrough session with Rob, because as you just saw for me, you can do a lot in 15 minutes. We don't always offer those. Sometimes we're just doing our monthly coaching calls inside of our monthly group, which you can also join for a really low price, or we're running our identity shifting mastermind, which we're currently taking applications for. But our goal, Rob's goal this year, has really been to break down these tools that we're talking about for free on the podcast and put them more places for free and give them out and make them accessible, so you can really kind of get to your next level and get past where you're going. So there's tons of free stuff. Start there. If you're like, I have no money, because do something, right?
Let me, sorry, I don't want to cut you off. Keep going.
I was going to say, and then, if you have a little bit and you want to be on coaching calls with Rob, then I would say join our group. It's a monthly payment, very low, and you get access to every single program that we have. So everything that we talked about, you will get. And if you're really wanting to go deep and you have a little more to invest, then apply to join our elite mastermind coaching group.
Yeah. So I'll say that back. And step one is we have this free Facebook community. It's literally called the Fundamental Shift Community. You can find it on Facebook. I'm sure we'll put links with this. Just join, say hi. There's tons going on in there. I'm offering coaching to those people in that group for free. So there's no charge for that. And obviously, as Sarah mentioned, if you're not on Facebook, you can certainly email us and we'll set that up because I'd love to do it for you anyway. Then the two real offerings to work with me and get access to all of the things that will systematically take you through these skills, right? The way to do this. One is we're doing this super affordable thing. It's called the Fundamental Shift Coaching Group. And you will, have access to that same free Fundamental Shift community, but you get access to all my tools. And I'm so excited about that. The other thing too is we're going to do these monthly calls. I'm going to be doing more Facebook Lives, different things like that for these guys where we're going to set up like what's most important for you to do this month. You get a really clear thing. We're going to hold you accountable, and we're going to be building that out more and adding more to that all the time. And right now it's just really, really affordable. We're trying to make that so literally like a high school kid could afford it. I mean, it's if you're on the internet, you should be able to afford that. And then the intense thing, the thing where if you want to break through and you're really in a spot, I do my identity shifting mastermind. We're running that in the next couple weeks when this comes out. And I am right now going to be offering a handful of partial scholarships for that because I'm just in the mood where I want to get this in more people's hands. And so I realize that's been expensive and priced out for a lot of people. And so even if you don't think that you can afford that elite level stuff, we would be happy to talk to you if you're a good fit. And the way to do that is to apply for that. So yeah, I mean, those are the ways to move forward if you want to go past this. If not, we love you as a listener to this and appreciate you very, very deeply. Is there anything else you want to go over?
No, that's about it.
Fantastic. All right. Be kind to yourself and everybody else. We appreciate you tons and tons. Bye-bye.